20 years, this was the pinnacle of American beauty. The wings, the spray tan, the blowout, the angel. It wasn't just a fashion show. It was the Super Bowl of aesthetics. If you were a woman in the 90s or 2000s, you didn't just buy underwear from Victoria's Secret. You bought a membership to a specific kind of womanhood. Carrying that pink striped bag through the mall was a status symbol. It said, "I'm sexy. I am desirable. I am part of the club." But here is the secret they didn't tell you. The clothes? They were mostly uncomfortable, overpriced polyester. The bras? They were designed to push your body into a shape that defied gravity, not to support it. And the brand itself? It wasn't founded by a woman who wanted to empower you. It was founded by a man who just wanted to make it less awkward for other men to buy lingerie for their wives. The year is 1977. Meet Roy Raymond. Roy is a Stanford MBA grad, and he has a problem. He wants to buy lingerie for his wife. Gay. But in the 1970s, buying underwear was a clinical experience. You went to a department store. The bras were functional, white, beige, utilitarian. And if a man wandered into that section, the sales clerks treated him like a pervert. Roy felt humiliated. He said he felt unwelcome. So he decided to build a store where he felt comfortable. He opened the first Victoria's Secret in San Francisco. And look at the design. It doesn't look like a women's store. It looks like a Victorian library or a high-end brothel. Dark wood paneling, oriental rugs, silk drapes. He named it Victoria after the Queen to give it a veneer of British propriety. The secret, that was what was underneath the dress. The entire business model was built for the male gaze. The catalog wasn't sent to women. It was designed for men to flip through. The store was designed for men to walk in, pick a fantasy off the wall, and take it home to their wives. And it worked for a while. Roy Raymond made millions, but by 1982, the company was failing. Why? Because men only buy lingerie once a year, Valentine's Day or an anniversary. You can't build an empire on customers who show up once every 365 days. Roy Raymond didn't understand women, but the man who bought his company did. Enter Les Wexner, the retail genius behind The Limited. He bought Victoria's Secret from Raymond for $1 million, essentially pocket change. Wexner saw the flaw immediately. He realized that if he wanted to scale, he couldn't sell to men. He had to sell to women, but he had a problem. Women didn't need expensive, lacy, uncomfortable lingerie for a Tuesday at the office. So Wexner decided to use a psychological trick. He kept the male gaze aesthetic. The push-up bras, the garter belts, the hypersexuality, but he repackaged it as female empowerment. He got rid of the dark wood and the brothel vibe. He brought in classical music, pink wallpaper, and French perfume. He made the store feel like a European boudoir. He created a fake address in London, 10 Margaret Street, even though the HQ was in Columbus, Ohio. And then came the products, the Miracle Bra, the very sexy line. The engineering wasn't about comfort, it was about architecture. It was about taking the female body and molding it into a specific silhouette, high, round, and cleaved. Wexner's genius was convincing women that they weren't dressing up for men. They were dressing up for themselves. He convinced millions of women that feeling good meant looking like a pinup girl. By the late 90s, Victoria's Secret was unstoppable, and their nuclear weapon was the angel. In 1995, they launched the Victoria's Secret fashion show. This wasn't a runway show to sell clothes. It was a globally televised commercial. They hired the most beautiful women in the world, put them in 10-foot wings, and broadcast it to millions of living rooms. The angel became the new Barbie. And this is where the marketing turned predatory. Because you couldn't be an angel. You had to be 5 feet 11 inches. You had to have 0% body fat. You had to win the genetic lottery. But you could buy the bra. They sold the impossible dream for $45. And then they went after the kids. In 2002, they launched Pink. They realized that waiting for a girl to turn 18 to buy lingerie was leaving money on the table. They needed to hook her in middle school. They sold sweatpants with Love Pink written across the butt. They sold training bras that were essentially gateway drugs to the push-up collection. If you went to a high school in 2005, you know the hierarchy. If you changed in the locker room and you didn't have a pink bra, you weren't cool. They had captured the entire life cycle of a woman, from the 13-year-old in pink to the 30-year-old in the bombshell bra. They owned the definition of sexy. But empires fall. In the mid-2000s, the culture shifted. The Me Too movement happened. Body positivity happened. Women started asking, why am I wearing this wire that digs into my ribs? Brands like Aerie and Savage X Fenty launched. They showed real bodies, stretch marks, different skin tones, comfort. Aerie stopped retouching their photos. Their sales skyrocketed. Victoria's Secret didn't just ignore the shift, they insulted it. In 2018, Ed Razek, the chief marketing officer and the architect of the Angel Fantasy, gave an interview to Vogue. When asked why he didn't cast plus-size or transgender models, he said, because the show is a fantasy. He said the quiet part out loud. He admitted that their brand wasn't for all women. It was for a specific fantasy that excluded 99% of the population. The backlash was instant. The stock crashed. The CEO resigned. The fashion show, once the most watched event in fashion, was canceled permanently in 2019. And we can't ignore the dark cloud of Leslie Wexner's close personal and financial ties to Jeffrey Epstein, which cast a shadow over the brand that no amount of rebranding could fix. Today, if you walk into a Victoria's Secret, it looks different. The mannequins are diverse. The lighting is brighter. They are desperately trying to pivot. But the damage is done. Victoria's Secret proves the ultimate rule of advertising. You can manufacture a culture, but you cannot freeze it in time. For 30 years, they convinced women that our value came from how well we could mimic a man's fantasy. But eventually, we realized we'd rather just be comfortable. This is the history of advertising. When you peel back the layers, you realize that so much of our modern reality, from the engagement ring on your finger, to the cereal in your bowl, to the razor in your shower, was architected in a boardroom 100 years ago by a group of men who just needed to move more units. And that's why we're breaking down the history of advertising and how it built the modern world, one insecurity at a time.